Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse. We're glad to have you with us, whether in person or streaming from home. I am Susan Smith, coordinator of this service and a member of the Sunday Services Committee. At the beginning of our order of service, you will know our land acknowledgement, a request to silence electronic devices, and a notice about the book at the front of our sanctuary in which you can record your joys and concerns and/or light a candle of commemoration as you prefer. Please feel free to do so as we are getting started. A member of the congregational care team will read what you choose to share a little later in the service. That sharing allows us to remain connected. Today, Reverend Alex will discuss Black Universalism and its history in the UU religion. That is especially appropriate during our Black History Month, but also because we are experiencing a challenge in our nation that we have never before faced. So as I welcome you today, I offer you comfort in our opportunity to be together in our common sentiments, anxieties, even fears. For it is together that we may be big enough, strong enough, and determined enough to make a difference, to find our way, to restore a sense of equanimity and peace and greater purpose to our lives. If you are new to our congregation or haven't been here for a while and are willing and able, you may stand to introduce yourself. Chris will bring a microphone to you so that even...
Oh, no worries. I'm a teacher. My name is Kat Brown, and I've been here before many times. Barb and I used to do interplay in here. And so Linda encouraged me to come back, and I thought, well, I think I will. So
welcome.
I'm back.
Yeah, welcome, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Sheila Wolf, and I moved here from Vermont recently within, last 6 months, somewhere in there, and started doing a couple things here, and so I thought I'd come to a service and see how it is, okay?
Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you.
For our social hour following services, we have designated yellow mugs that for those we haven't met previously or haven't seen lately. This will enable us to recognize you and welcome you personally to our beloved community. I am proud and honored to be a member of this community, which follows in Martin Luther King Jr.'s footsteps and our own UU values of standing up for the least among us and essentially getting into good trouble, as Congressman John Lewis described it. And you will notice here in front of our chalice table that we have been designated by the Unitarian Universalist Association as a congregation of good trouble. That is a badge that we wear with honor. I see our co-chairs of the Social Justice Committee over there. Thank you for all your hard work. Let us now, may we all find the strength within ourselves to stand up and speak out for those oppressed and persecuted among us and for our nation. May we find ever more ways to resist tyranny. Never has this been more important. Let us now turn to our centering music performed by Julie Gobbets.
Whoever you are, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. Need to remember not to mumble. I'm Reverend Alex, the senior minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns. And welcome to this service celebrating Black Universalism, the ancestries and roots of our Black Universalist forebears that have shaped and informed the tradition and inheritance that we receive today that we don't always fully know or hear about. So as we settle into this service together, I invite you to receive these words by the Reverend Deanna Van Diver, titled, "We Find Our Salvation Here." Throughout time, our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition has held a thread of clarity. How we relate to each other creates the conditions of hell and heaven here on earth. We may not know or agree about what lies beyond this life, but it's our conviction that our actions and our inactions have consequences for the web of all existence. While fascinating and mysterious, we do not place our hopes for salvation in what happens after death. We find our salvation here on earth, showing up for each other with mercy, respect, and compassion. And as people of faith, we are called to a love that is bold, a love beyond our skill and through our fear with courage and compassion. As a faithful collective, we are called to offer sanctuary, refuge, and comfort to everyone affected by the systems of oppression in this world. As faithful people, we are called to relationships of care and accountability. Our presence matters. How we relate to each other creates the conditions of hell or heaven here on earth. May we remember and affirm that we are all in this together, friends. We are all in this together. Come, let us worship together this morning.
Taken from the Unitarian Universalist Association website, these words remind us when we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and a sense of justice. That flame is what one of our beloved hymns terms the fire of commitment. I ask you now to join me in reading our covenant statement, found on the back of your order of service. I'm accountable for me, you're accountable for you. In community, we hold each other through joy and conflict. We openly welcome all as we respond to the needs of the world. And now we sound the singing bowl to focus our attention in the moment.
In honor of Black History Month and of our time today honoring the contributions of Black Universalist history, today we are singing hymns and playing songs that are from the lived experiences of Black people. I invite you to join with the acknowledgement, the awareness, and reverence, and let us lean in with minds and hearts wide open. Would you please stand in body or in spirit, rise in body or in spirit, and join me in singing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me
good morning. All of my young folks want to come forward, the young and young at heart. Come on up and join me. Hi. You're going to want to sit on the floor because there's a video that you're going to want to see. Hi. Hello, friends. I'm happy to see you this morning. You got a decent night's sleep last night? I'm so happy for you. Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you're feeling rested today. So this morning, friends, we actually have a little video that we're going to watch, but I want to kind of introduce it first. So does anybody know what the word marginalized means? That's a big word. That is a big word. So it's hard to describe. So I have a paper that has a bunch of words on it, right? If you think about when you're reading a book, so this is the center. The margins are the outside, right? So the margins are the outside of your paper. And if we're talking about marginalized in the world and society, it means people that have been pushed to the outside and that are not at the center. Like what? Oh, yes, like people who were enslaved, absolutely. So this month, the month of February, we're celebrating Black History Month. And here at the UU today, we're celebrating our Black Universalist history. So believe it or not, there's not a lot of children's books on Black Universalism, but there are a lot of really great children's books on Black history. So this morning, I wanted to honor some of the history of our country. But what color is my skin? My skin is not black, and I didn't want to use my voice to uplift Black voices. I wanted to use, or to honor the voices of Black people and let them speak for themselves, right? Because some of the ways that we lift up marginalized voices is by letting them share their own stories, right? So people of different marginalized identities, there's Black people, there's queer people, there's women, there's disabled people, all kinds of different marginalized identities in this world. And one of the biggest ways that we let them come to the center is by letting them tell their own stories. So rather than me reading a book about Black history today, I wanted to share a little video. So this is a video from Kwame Alexander, and it's a book called The Undefeated. And we're going to listen to him read the poem, and then we're going to go through the slides of the picture book a little bit, because I wanted you to see the pictures too. So, Jeff, if you want to go ahead and play that video. This is Kwame Alexander.
This is for the unforgettable, the swift and sweet ones who hurdled history and opened a world of possible, the ones who survived America by any means necessary, and the ones who didn't. This is for the undeniable, the ones who scored with chains on one hand and hope in the other. This is for the unflappable, the sophisticated ones who box adversity, who tackle vision, who shine their light for the world to see and don't stop till the break of dawn. This is for the unafraid, the righteous marching ones who carried the red, white, and weary blues, who sang, "We shall not be moved because Black lives matter." This is for the unspeakable, and this is for the unstoppable. This is for the unspeakable, and this is for the unstoppable. This is for the doers and the dreamers and the doers who swim the big sea of our imagination and show us the majestic shores of the promised land. The Jesse Owens, the Althea Gibsons, the Wilma Rudolphs, the Muhammad Alis, the Jordans and the Swoops, the Serenas and the LeBrons, the Reese Whitleys and the undiscovered. This is for the unbelievable, the we real cool ones. This is for the unbending, the Black as the night is beautiful ones. This is for the underdogs and the uncertain, the unspoken but no longer untitled. This is for the undefeated. This is for the undefeated. This is for you and you and you. This is for us.
So I want to read, and Jeff, if you can kind of just scroll through the slides a little bit, just so everybody gets a chance to see the illustrations, because there are some really important and prominent, and also some less known figures from Black history that show up in this book. But I want to read Kwame Alexander's afterword that he wrote about why he wrote this book. So it says, I started writing this poem in 2008. That was the year my second daughter, Samaya, was born. And 3 months later, This is before all of you were born, but Barack Obama became the first African American president of the United States. This poem was my tribute to both. I wanted to establish from the very beginning that much of what I'm talking about in this poem, so much of American history, has been forgotten, left out of the textbooks, and that to truly know who we are as a country, we have to accept and embrace all our woes and our wonders. So I wrote a poem because I wanted my daughters to know how we got to this historic moment, or as the famous Mahalia Jackson spiritual says, you know, my soul look back and wonder, how did I make it over? I wrote a poem about Black Olympians such as Jesse Owens and Wilma Rudolph undermining the false narrative of white superiority by racing to gold in front of the whole world. About Malcolm X urging Blacks to fight for freedom, justice, and equality no matter the method or the cost. About enslaved Africans pushing on with an unwavering fighting spirit of hope and faith. Faith that one day they would be free, or that their children or their children's children would become the masters of their own destinies. About Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and the Harlem Renaissance. About cultural expression and liberation and the Black arts movement. About Dr. King's acceptance speech for the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize. About a promised land without racial injustice, poverty, and war. About civil rights marchers chanting, "We shall overcome," and demonstrating across the South. About Jack Johnson and Muhammad Ali boxing racial prejudice in and out of the ring. About Black Civil War soldiers saving a union that refused to see them as equals. About Black Lives Matter. About Black Lives Matter. About Black Lives Matter. Because we are Americans, because we are human beings. But mostly I wrote a poem to remind Samaya and her friends and her family and all of you, and to remind myself to never, ever, ever give up. Because as Maya Angelou wrote, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. It may even be necessary to encounter the defeat so that we can know who we are, so that we can see, oh, that happened and I rose. I did get knocked down flat in front of the whole world, and I rose. Keep rising. Kwame Alexander, May 11th, 2018. So my friends, it's our job to be the people who are saying, those on the margins, come to the center. Let us lift up your voices. Let us listen to your stories. Let us hear what you have to say, because Black history is American history, right? Wonderful. Let's go ahead and sing our song together.
We are children of the stars, we are children of the earth, we are spinners and weavers in this web of life, and the joy that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being. We are children of tomorrow, we are children of our dreams, we are planners and builders in this web of life, and the future that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being.
All right, let's head down to class.
Good morning. So I was asked to share with you what this congregation means to me and why I am happy to pledge my time and financial support to it. There are many reasons, and they can really be summed up in the mission statement. Grounded in love, we protect the web of life by building beloved community, making good trouble, embodying radical love, and engaging in lifelong learning. Imagine a group of people who choose to come together in community with open hearts, assuming the best in others, pursuing knowledge and experiences to help them better understand the world and the people in it, and promoting love, equity, and sustainability. In a world and a time so striven by fear, greed, hate, exploitation, and competition, the world needs more communities like UUCGT, not fewer. And in order to continue serving this congregation and the wider Traverse City community, money is unfortunately required. There are many ways for you to spend your financial resources and many worthwhile organizations that need financial support. But few organizations have the ability to impact so many people in this community in so many different ways. If there is an issue you care about in this community, there is someone at UUCGT working on it. So come on in and help. And if there isn't anyone working on it, start a group. This community will support and join you. And if you're new here or want to dig deeper and learn more, we need you. Join a committee, attend a potluck, join a yoga or meditation class, or volunteer as a greeter on Sundays. We are in an all hands on deck time, and you have come to an all hands on deck congregation. So you're in the right place. Help us meet the needs of this time by making a pledge today. My very wise husband, Louis, when making decisions about pledging time and resources to things, always asks the question, what is my why? So in that spirit, my why is my daughter. I want her to have a community that welcomes her and loves and supports her as she grows. And I want to make the world a better place for her. Sorry. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in the book, Strength to Love, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Sorry. Please consider making a pledge today to help UUCGT continue to be a beacon of light.
Thank you, Aaron. We could all see that came straight from your heart, and we appreciate it very much. We've come to the time in our service where we give freely of our own resources to sustain our congregation, our building, our staff, and our programming. In addition, our stewardship allows us to reach out to those who are the most marginalized and vulnerable among us. And most recently, the board has decided to earmark a portion of our donations for our social justice work. Our offerings truly reflect our commitment to our UU values. If you are watching at home, you may give as described in the slide. Mail a check, visit the UUCGT website, download the Vanco Mobile Faith Engagement app, or prearrange with your bank for a monthly transfer into the UUCGT account. Let us now enjoy our meditation music performed by Julie Govitz.
morning. My name is Kelly McIntosh. I'm a member of the Congregational Care Team. And this may be a little bit weird, but if any of you are wondering why I have way too much purple eye makeup on my left eye, I wasn't in a bar fight last night. But you should see the other guy. So now that that's over, it's our practice as a religious community to set aside time in our service to name and honor the joys and concerns that mark our lives, the milestones and the moments in our lived experiences. I will be sharing the joys and concerns that have been shared, offered up for us to hold in our hearts today. If you have a joy or concern that is a bit too heavy to share, I invite you to reach out to Reverend Alex or the Congregational Care Team. And I know there are other members of the Congregational Care Team here today. Will you raise your hand? Ha. Yes, we are strong and mighty. If your joy or concern is still raw and tender, we invite you to hold it in your heart as you are held in this loving community, because none of us is meant to travel life's journey alone. So now, dear ones, here is what our community has shared. We have from Mike Radke and Mary Van Valen, the hard workers for yesterday's summit. Great joy. The Show Up for the Good Trouble Summit was a great example of the power of community. Thanks to all who are participated. I hear there was a huge crowd. It's great. And a joy and concern from Ann Swaney. My twin grandkids, Lauren and David, turned 19 today. Worried about the kind of life they'll have in our future world. I think we all feel that. From David Knoller, a concern, wishing peace on the heart of my friend for her recent loss. And from Cindy, a concern, I have a very important meeting tomorrow that will determine whether I get to remain in gorgeous Traverse City or have to leave. Please hold this meeting in your thoughts so that I may continue to be a part of this beautiful community that I have grown to love so much. And I would just like to add, from listening to things today, we're all really concerned about what we're facing, but we have, I guess, the ability to be so joyous that we are going through all this as part of this loving community. Not everybody in Traverse City has this. Oops, there was one other thing, wasn't there? And now let's hold a moment of stillness for the joys and concerns that remain in the silence on our hearts. Thank you.
Would you join me for a moment of prayer? Spirit of boundless love, we gather in this moment to remember the nourishing seed at the beating heart of Universalism, that no soul is beyond the reach of love, that salvation, wholeness, healing, and dignity is for all, and that we are called to build a world reflecting that sacred promise. As we honor Black History Month, we remember the voices who proclaimed the worth of all souls even when the world refused to see it. We name the stories too often left in the shadows, the Black Universalists, preachers, and poets who believed in a world and a love wide enough to hold a broken nation and deep enough to lift every life. We remember that the promise of this love is not just for some distant heaven, but a call for justice and liberation here and now. May we honor their vision by carrying this dream forward, binding love into action, mercy into justice, and faith into freedom. O Spirit, make us worthy of this history. Let us weave a future where no soul is forgotten, no story is erased, and no love is withheld. May we live this truth with courage, honoring the whole tapestry of our shared becoming. Amen. Let us now join in singing a different song of response this morning, number 95 in your gray hymnals, There's More Love Somewhere.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Our reading this morning is by the Reverend Connie Simon, titled, We Were Always Here. In this reflection, Reverend Simon reflects on how the contributions of Black Universalists and Unitarians are sidelined in how we talk and share about our Unitarian Universalist history. She wrote, as a new UU in Philadelphia, I'd walk through the church doors every Sunday and see portraits and lists of Unitarians or Universalists. They usually name white men from the 19th century, Channing, Parker, Thoreau, and maybe Ballou. Never anyone Black like me. Maybe that's why I was stunned when at a recent visit to a congregation, a member came up to me and shared their understanding that Unitarian Universalism is a relatively new religion. And they learned that it was started by James Reeb on his trip down south in 1965. I was too stunned in the moment to even process that or ask who had taught them that. Even if it was a misunderstanding, it's a telling one, the assumption that our faith arose from a white founder. I used to teach a UU history class for one of our regions, and I would always ask participants if they were aware that a person from Africa was one of the first proponents of Unitarian theology. No, they would say, that's not possible. Arius was a religious leader born in Libya who argued against the Trinitarian view that God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit were one. If the Father begat the Son, then he who was begotten had a beginning in existence. And from this, it follows there was a time when the Son was not. He was declared a heretic at the Council of Nicaea in 325 of the Common Era, a bit before James Reeb. While some white UUs would prefer to think of Arius as European, the fact is that this black ancestor has shaped our faith for nearly 2,000 years. A piece of the free and responsible search for truth and meaning includes being responsible in how you partake of the stories of others. For example, are you considering all the stories? It's not responsible to say that people who look like me weren't part of this tradition, because we were. As I heard Reverend Mark Morrison Reed say years ago, we were always here. Reverend Simon ends with a quote from Dr. Taqiyya Nur Amin. White supremacy as a culture wants to claim anything of value and get you to believe that nobody else had an intellectual tradition. Not so.
So the earliest Universalist theologian, Origen of Alexandria, was black. How many of you actually knew that before? All right, I got someone that did. What's interesting about both our early Unitarian and Universalist roots as a faith are that both of these different roots actually point to theologians and leaders from northern Africa. Not just with Arius from Libya that we heard about in our reading, who's the original Unitarian kind of thinker, but also Origen of Alexandria, who also came from Egypt, from Alexandria in Egypt, who's the original Universalist thinker. And so while these theologians might not have lived in the contexts of society and race as we know them today, there is absolutely this phenomenon in our UU history where we seem to conveniently forget or leave out certain stories. We proudly make the ancestral claims to the white male theologians and thinkers in our faith's history. You might recognize the names of William Ellery Channing, Theodore Parker, Henry David Thoreau, and Hosea Ballou, only to name a few. And we are less equipped to have conversations about the black founders and voices in our UU history. This is what the Unitarian Universalist minister and scholar, the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed, names as the black hole in the white UU psyche. How we quite simply don't know Unitarian Universalism's black history, and we even go as far as to embrace a false narrative of who we are. From our black Unitarian Universalist siblings, we hear a clear message. The truth is that we have always been here, should we only choose to look and seek this rich history out. We have always been here. So this morning, in honor of Black History Month, we're turning to the Universalist side of our UU family tree, examining the stories and contributions of black ancestors in the lineage of Universalism. Universalism and the ultimate belief in universal salvation, the idea that all people, no matter who they are or where they've been in life, are held in a boundless love, is one of the most theologically poignant beliefs that we inherit from these ancestors. I'd even dare to make the claim that Universalism is actually the beating heart of Unitarian Universalism. While we inherited much from our Unitarian side, the freedom of belief and the oneness of God, the use of tools like logic and critical thinking and spirituality, even the accent placed on humanity and the power of human potential, these are all great and wondrous gifts from our Unitarian forebears. Though it's the Universalists that gave us our theological center, the belief that no one is outside of the bounds of love and that all of humanity is interconnected. and that goodness and love ultimately prevail in a world of death, suffering, and injustice. That's the beating heart of our faith that we claim an inheritance from, beyond the Bostonian Unitarian elite, beyond their private libraries for the learned, and their legacy white steeple congregations, all back east. Organized Universalism arose from more modest means, from the likes of backcountry Baptists and radical reformers, many of whom were working class or from rural towns. Even lesser known are the theological contributions and gifts of Black leaders and thinkers as Universalism was organized into congregations and churches. It's a little unknown fact that actually it was here in the US first where Universalism became organized as a church. This theology had existed for many, many years in a great diversity of belief, and it was only here in the US that it was formally organized into churches. I'll try not to do too many of those sidebars. This morning, I hope to tell you some of the stories and contributions of our lesser-known Universalist forebears, though I am up to an ambitious task as a white male UU minister. I don't pretend to be an expert on this history. I very much am still learning about these earlier contributions to our UU history, though I hope I can model for you a sense of curiosity and interest in wanting to know the fuller story. While I won't nearly have enough time to get into everything, I hope our explorations of this will be just a beginning. Ultimately, it's you, and each of you, that must answer this call to learn and share this history. In this time when diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI as it is known, is under attack, we must all the more circle around to share these underrepresented voices and stories. Collectively, we must endeavor to retell the story of Unitarian Universalism from a place of humility and a greater awareness of the stories that are so often left unshared. I hope you'll learn something today that you'll actually share these stories yourself. That's what I charge you to take away from this service, to see if you can take one of these stories with you and tell it. So let's go ahead and dive in. You know how much of a nerd I am about UU history. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I want to start first with the contributions of Origen, a theologian who was actually not a Universalist in terms of the modern sense of the term, but whose writings and beliefs absolutely paved the way for Universalism. Origen of Alexandria was an early Christian scholar who lived in the 3rd century after Jesus' death. A prolific writer, he wrote over 2,000 texts in several different areas of theology. And one of those prominent areas was the subject of universal salvation, that all people would eventually be saved by a loving God. While Origen is one of the starting thinkers in this school of thoughts, he was miles and miles off of the Universalism of Hosea Ballou, who you might remember as one of the ultra-Universalists. I always thought that that would make a great band name, the Ultra-Universalists. Origen believed that universal salvation came by way of a purification process following death. In this framework, Origen viewed God as a divine physician who medically removed sin from our lives. And in his view, divine punishment was medicinal, which was actually pretty far out for his time. God's punishment must serve a purpose. It is not punitive, but actually restorative, bringing all people back into unity and connection with the divine. This was a theology that was rejected at the Council of Nicaea as heresy 72 years after Origen's death. That was the same council where, of course, Arius, one of the early Unitarians, was also rejected for being a heretic. Now, before I lose you in all the weeds of that, I want to highlight the particular contribution that we've inherited from this Black ancestor. From Origen, we inherit the ultimate belief in the power of love to prevail against all powers. We have Origen to thank for complicating the picture and character of God, that God could not be a cruel God who wanted to damn their children to hell for all eternity. That just doesn't measure up to a loving God. From this ancestor, we inherit the profound faith that love wins out every time. Therefore, love must be at the center of all we do. That's all thanks to Origen. Next, I want to fast forward just a few years to the 1800s and 1900s and talk about the Universalist teacher and principal, Annie Bizzell Jordan Willis. Miss Annie was the daughter of the Reverend Joseph Jordan, who was the first African-American Universalist preacher, and Mary Jordan, who actually ran a Universalist school for black children back at a time when black children truly had few places to go for an education. I actually preached about the Jordans last year around the same time when we were covering our Unitarian Universalist Black history. And so following in her father's footsteps, Miss Annie served as principal of the school for 45 years. In a crowded and underfunded classroom, Miss Annie was a presence of warmth and loving hugs. During cold and rainy weather, she made sure all of her students had something warm to wear before they headed home on their journeys. She was known for her intolerance of discrimination. She treated all of her students with love and respect, no matter their abilities. And Miss Annie led the school through some trying times, namely the Great Depression, where factories closed, unemployment was widespread, and families could hardly afford tuition. And back then, tuition at the time was something like 10 cents a week, which was a significant amount of money during that time for black families. While Miss Annie dug deeper to help her kids, support for the school declined, especially its support from the Universalist parent denomination. When the Unitarian and Universalist denominations consolidated in 1961, the school was shuttered a few years following the merger. Universalism's commitment to supporting the school ended with the newly established Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which failed to see its value. It was seen as a failing Universalist project, but few Unitarians saw the significance in the school's 78-year-long history as a Universalist school. This is a common story in our Unitarian Universalist ancestry, where the Unitarian side, with all of its money, status, and greater privilege, often undervalued the contributions of the Universalist side. This pervades even today in our shorthand of referring to ourselves as Unitarians over Unitarian Universalist. Have you ever wondered why Unitarian comes first in the name? There was a side that won out, and the Unitarians were the side that won. Universalism's links, especially to programs like the school, were phased out and eventually forgotten about. And Miss Annie's story shows us a powerful story of a teacher so inspired by Universalism that descendants of the many generations who were taught at the Jordan School continue to remember it today. So while that history is sometimes forgotten, there are generations and descendants of those students that were taught there that still remember the legacies of that school. And so from Miss Annie, we hear the story of a black woman Universalist who made the love that holds us all real for generations of black children. She lived that theology. Now, lastly, I want to turn to a bit of a harder chapter of our black Universalist history, and that is what is known as the theological conundrum of white Universalism and how that intersected with the lived experiences of black folks. The heart of this conundrum was a dissonance between white Universalism's theology of universal salvation and its inability to address the immediate suffering of black folks. Theologies of universal love and reconciliation are well and good, don't get me wrong, but the challenge remains with the promise that all are eventually saved. What good does that do for the injustices and suffering happening right now? White Universalists had few answers to that. Despite this, what's remarkable are the black Universalist leaders and activists who nevertheless won the trust and esteem of the black community in this time. It's the black Universalists who developed a lived theology of Universalism that spoke louder than anything, the lived into belief that each person is loved and deserves the chance to thrive. I invite you to read way more about this subject. There's a book by the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed called Darkening the Doorways that explores all of these missed opportunities and black trailblazers in our history. And so you can read all about this as he kind of outlines it. I really encourage you to do this. And so with this in the foreground, I now want to bring your attention to the story of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who is often overshadowed by the deaths of Viola Liuzzo and the Reverend James Reeb in the Selma voting rights movement of the 1960s. Reverend Connie Simon mentions this in our reading, how some Unitarian Universalists she spoke with mistakenly credited Reverend James Reeb for the founding of Unitarian Universalism. I hope none of you were one of those people coming in today. While Jimmy Lee Jackson wasn't an explicit Universalist, he had values that leaned theologically Universalist. A Baptist deacon, Jimmy viewed liberation and justice as sacred work. Just 26 years old, Jimmy participated in a peaceful protest in 1965, where he was attacked by police and shot at point-blank range by state police. What was his crime? Protecting his mother from being beaten by the state police. He later died 8 days in the hospital. It was this death that became a rallying cry for voting rights across the nation, igniting the marches in Selma and all across the nation. Following his death, the Unitarian Universalists followed in droves after this, providing the highest turnout of leaders and clergy from any other religious denomination. We sent the most, even as a newly established UU denomination. And yet, following this call, the Reverend James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo showed up to protest the ongoing injustice. And both of these leaders were then killed by white supremacists for their involvement in these protests. And their deaths actually drew national attention and outrage that two white folks were the victims of this unfolding violence, something that the nation just was unwilling to tolerate anymore. Little do we continue to tell the story of Jimmy Lee Jackson in UU Spaces, and how it was his death that first sparked these protests and our commitments to racial justice. From Jimmy Lee Jackson, we might inherit a strand that is not just our own. The powerful reminder of how faith rooted in love and justice can truly transform society. For Jimmy, his justice work was rooted in faith, a reminder to all of us that our justice work that we pursue today must also be deeply rooted in faith. Jimmy Lee Jackson's story tells us that sometimes we must look outside of our tradition to see the fullest expressions of courage, radical love, and justice. Our Unitarian Universalist legacies with this history are sometimes only part of the story. To honor his legacy, we must recognize that the struggle for justice is woven into a deeper commitment, that our actions be grounded not only in a belief, but a boldly expressed love, a love that risks, that reaches out, and that refuses to let oppression have the final say. So to close, may we cherish and remember the contributions of Black Universalists and leaders in our faith's shared tapestry. While many have struggled to find a home in UU congregations and churches, we are reminded that Black folks have always been here. And as we go forward and tell these stories anew, may we remember all those who forged a path and a home for themselves in this tradition and faith that hasn't always made room. And as Unitarian Universalists and people that endeavor to put love at the center of all we do, may we always remember to make room, not just at our tables and in our congregations, but in our stories as well. May our Black Universalist legacies of love and connection guide us in the future of our faith that we endeavor to create together. Let us weave these stories and threads anew. Amen. Let's join in a brief moment of stillness together. Just have one quick little announcement for you in this time that we reserve for the special ritual of announcements. And that's an encouragement that coming up next Sunday, we're going to be exploring sacred self-care as a topic for our service. There's actually a book that I'll be abridging from that I encourage you to get a copy of yourself. This book outlines a 49-day spiritual practice journey that for each day you can kind of try on a different spiritual practice and see how it fits. So it's something that you're going to want to get a copy of if you're interested in participating in that. So this is your warning that if you want to be prepared for coming up, I'm going to be delving into this, and I think you'll find this to be really special. So if you want to come check this out, feel free to approach me after the service. Now let's go into singing our closing hymn together.
Would you please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing I'm on My Way, number 116 in your gray hymnal.
If you'd like, with your neighbor. And then we also invite those of you that, we have this gesture of please do not touch me. If you're one of those folks that doesn't want to be touched, that is completely fine here. Those of you online are also welcome to outstretch your hands as we extinguish our flame.
As Reverend Alex releases our flame today, I will read words I've adapted from those written by Reverend Priscilla Murdoch in 2015, 3 years before her death at the age of 86. As we bring to a close this tribute to Black Unitarians and Universalists and to the journey it has enabled through the years, let us be mindful of the enduring bond that keeps us together. Let us remember those who went before and paved the greater UU road for us to travel.
And in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, and in the spirit of love and our shared unfolding journey, may we be made ready to serve one another and create the world we so desperately dream of. Go in peace, pass a little squeeze or an Air 5, and have a wonderful Sunday.